What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I actually, as it turns out, I'm going to have two videos for you today because I did have my Dolphins 2021 season in review video planned for today, so that will be coming out shortly after this one. But there are some updates to the Dolphins head coaching search, and so I want to talk about that first. But in that video, I will go through the entire season. I'll talk about it in a whole. I'll talk about the first half, the second half. I'll talk about the troubles, the issues. I'll go through what my predictions were, my original prediction and how I got to that, my revised prediction, how things changed over the season, what the actual results are, etc., etc. So I'm going to talk about all that. But first, I am going to go ahead and get into this here video, which is going to be about the Dolphins head coaching search. So let's go ahead now and pop over here so you can take a look. So this is I got a couple articles I want to read through, but the first one is Dolphins head coach search 2022, Eric Bieniemy and Josh McDaniels early favorites to replace Brian Flores. Now that's Patriots Josh McDaniels, right? Because there's the Mike McDaniels or McDaniel, whatever. I don't know if his has the S on the end of it, but he's the 49ers coach, which he's in this list. This actually is this article has a very lengthy list of candidates, and he says that Bieniemy and Josh McDaniels appear to be the early favorites. But let me just go ahead and throw in real quick right now that I've heard that Dan Marino is pushing for Doug Peterson. I've heard that from other sources that it's actually Brian Daboll who is the early favorite, and actually by a pretty wide margin. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out because of how many names are on the list to begin with, and also because of the fact that multiple sources are reporting different leading candidates, and also because the Jim Harbaugh situation is just floating in the background, although we will talk about that a little bit too. It's going to be really difficult to guess. But let me just say this right off the top, and then we'll dive into this. For me, my number one choice is Jim Harbaugh, even though it probably, as of right now, with the public information, it would seem that it's kind of a long shot in getting him. But that's my number one choice because he has the best pedigree. He's done it in the NFL. He's got a ton of connections, and especially because Greg Roman and Vic Fangio, I kept forgetting Vic Fangio's name for some reason, but those two guys should be available, and he should be able to pull them into his coaching staff, and that would help. I think that would be brilliant, and we need something like that. So, and again, then I would actually feel a lot better about Chris Grier being retained, because then I think that taking his orders from a Jim Harbaugh would be fabulous for this team when it comes to like the draft, for example. And I would have a lot more confidence that his staff would be able to develop these players. But anyway, and then it would give me some hope that maybe we can get Breece Hall in the first round. But anyway, and he's the only one that I would actually like legitimately, as of right now. We're going through, we're reading all the news, we're getting more information, Mike McDaniel, on these different individuals. And there are a handful of them that I'd be all right with. There are some not so much that I would, probably pass on. But, I don't know. Like, the only one I really am excited for is, Jim Harbaugh, or would be excited for, rather, if we got him. And like I said, there are a handful of guys, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but there's a handful of guys that I'd be all right with. I would prefer a veteran guy with a Rolodex over, a first-time head coach. If I'm being honest, even though I'd be all right with, like Brian Daboll, for example, I just really don't want another first-time head coach. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Let's go ahead and dive into this because there's a lot of information to get through. The Miami Dolphins are in the midst of a search for their next head coach after the team fired Brian Flores one day after the 2021 regular season ended. The move came as a surprise after the Dolphins finished the year 9-8, winning 8 of their last 9 games. But team owner Stephen Ross indicated there were communication issues within the organization leading to a need for a change. Real quick, by the way, I just want to say that, and we'll talk about this more in the next video, but look, I firmly believe that Brian Flores and his attempts to sabotage Tua held this team back, particularly on defense, and that's why we didn't see the defense play like it should have. And like it did the entire second half and all last season. I don't think there are any excuses for why, other than he was trying, and with all the reports that are coming out now that Brian Flores is gone, about how terrible and how toxic the environment was and how much he really didn't like Tua. I'm just like, I'm telling you, man, it was his pride, or not his pride, it was his ego and his, power-hungry, controlling ways that ended up screwing him over when it comes to the job in Miami, because at some point it just gets too toxic and it boils over. So, he was his own worst enemy, but this is why, like, in the David Culley, because Culley obviously got fired from the Houston job, which I expected, unfortunately, because I always felt like they were just going to stopgap him for a single season and then get rid of him, which is exactly what they did. I feel kind of bad for him, though, because there's nothing that he did that would warrant getting fired, frankly. Brian Flores, on the other hand, he deserved it because he set himself up for this and the things that he did along the way. But again, we'll get more into that in the next video, which is the year in review. So let's continue on with this. Miami is known to have requested interviews with 6 coordinators as they begin to throw out a large net to find their next head coach. They have requested interviews from Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, 49ers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel, Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, Cardinals defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, and Bills defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier. Daboll and Frazier are expected to interview on Sunday. While those 6 interview requests are the 6 known coaches Miami is considering, none of them are the favorite for the job, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. So apparently it's a betting line, which I read through this, but it's a betting line as to who, and that's why he has Josh McDaniels and Eric Bieniemy as the leading guys. We'll get to the list here in just a second, though. So instead, Kansas City Chiefs offensive, and that's why he puts these numbers and whatever. Offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy and New England Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels are both at the top of a list of his potential replacements for Flores at plus 400. Just behind them are Daboll and Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich. So let's take a quick look at this full list, and I'm just going to give you like yes or no and whatever. So Eric Bieniemy, I have wanted him in the past, and I've talked about him. I have been reading more about him, and I've read some things about some issues with him, particularly pertaining to, I think he had some DUI issues and some legal issues and stuff like that. And then I heard some other stuff. I read some other stuff about have some issues like within one of the last organisms. Anyway, so but from and by the way, let me just say this though, that the vast majority of these, with the exception of a couple here, including one of the favorites, Josh McDaniels, they don't go into this situation for me having red flags like Brian Flores did. And again, I'll elaborate more on that later, but just to be clear, I'm not a fan of Patriot disciples. I didn't like the fact that he accepted to tank the 2019 season. And those were 2 things. I was willing to give him a chance, but then he proved to me really, quite quickly who he was. And so, the things I suspected about him proved to be true. And so, But he went into it. Most of these guys, Josh McDaniels obviously has that because I'm not a fan of Patriots. So I would hate Josh McDaniels. I do not want Josh McDaniels. Eric Bieniemy, I'd be all right with. Brian Daboll, again, I'd be all right with. But I'm not I just really don't want a first-time head coach, if I'm being honest. Byron Leftwich, he's a hot and up-and-coming guy. But I do agree, like, you know, I would want to see more from him, especially like without having Tom Brady and the kind of team that they have, like, because he wasn't in charge of building that team. He's just an assistant coach, right? He's the offensive coordinator. And yes, they did a great job. He has done a great job, but again, they do have Tom Brady, and they are stacked on that offense, and so on and so forth. They do have a good defense. So, and they also have a lot of other good coaches and stuff within that organization. So, you know, is he really that? I don't know. We'll see. I probably wouldn't go after Byron Leftwich. Doug Peterson, he's got experience. He's probably got a decent Rolodex. He's been around a little bit. He's actually been in Miami, and he's been a former head coach. I wouldn't mind Doug Peterson at all. Kellen Moore is an intriguing and has intriguing upside, kind of like a Sean McVay or like a McVay. Why am I like McVay? Anyway, I'm blanking on his first name, like a McVay. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time. But again, I don't really want a first-time head coach. Nathaniel Hackett, kind of similar to the Byron Leftwich situation. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and stuff like that, and A.J. Dillon and whatnot. So, I don't know. I mean, probably wouldn't be terrible. Some of these people, though, I would actually want more as coordinators. Like a Matt Eberflus actually is more of a kind of a guy, or even a Nathaniel Hackett. I probably prefer them as coordinators, if I'm being honest. Jim Harbaugh, you know, is the one that I definitely want. So I'm not really excited about these two guys. Like, they'd be more coordinator for me. Joe Brady, not really. I'm not hearing great things. Matt Campbell, I really don't know anything about him. He's an Iowa State head coach. No, I'm good on that, though. Like, he's a head coach on the college level, but, you know, not the NFL. So, no, I'm good. Dan Quinn, experience and probably a bit of a Rolodex, but I've heard some not so good things. I'd be all right with Jim Caldwell, Kevin O'Connell. I don't really know much about him. Mike McDaniel, he's been intriguing, again, but I'm not so keen on the first-time head coach. I watched some of the stuff he said and whatever, and I liked the things that he said, but, you know, I'm not huge on that. Like, some of these guys, I don't know. I just don't, because for the Dolphins, I get it, right? I get it. Some of these young coaches, they have to have their first time somewhere, right? I just don't want any more first-time head coaches for the Dolphins, because we've done that so many times now. Like, that's been pretty much all of fucking Stephen Ross's time here, except with what, maybe Sperano. I think Sperano was a head coach before. You know. Anyway, but like, I mean, Philbin, Gase, and Flores, those three for sure. But anyway, like, I want them to go. I want a former head coach, somebody who's done it before, somebody who's already gone through that process, learned and taken their lumps and grown and evolved from it, and, you know, probably has a little bit of a Rolodex, right? And has been around longer and seen more shit. Kevin O'Connell, offensive coordinator from the Rams. Mike McDaniel, we talked. Gerard Mayo, definitely not. I don't want anybody from the Patriots. Leslie Frazier, I'd be all right with too. So that's that. That's the betting lines for who's the favorites. Now, I do want to add to that, though, because there was a additional bit that was added to this today. So the Dolphins request an interview with Rams running back coach Thomas Brown. I don't know this dude. We're about to go through it a little bit here, but I mean, he's not even a coordinator, so no offense to the dude, but it's going to be a hard pass. Like, just, he needs to rise up the ranks. This dude, he might be a great guy, and maybe he's a fantastic coach, and maybe one day he'll be great as a coordinator and then a head coach, but he needs to rise up before. I don't want to take first-time head coaches that are coordinators that are previously coordinators, I'm less likely to take a running backs coach or a linebacker coach, right? So that other New England guy. Anyway, Miami's search for a new head coach continues, and Ross seems to be leaning towards an offensive mind. After requesting interviews with Mike McDaniel, Brian Dable, blah, 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 they now add running backs coach Thomas Brown. Most of Brown's coaching experience comes at the collegiate level, not very experienced, where he served 9 seasons prior. So not very experienced in the NFL. He's got some, and this could be good to help build his resume, and he probably learned a lot from it, right? But now he's in the NFL as a running backs coach. Maybe he can work his way up to a coordinator, and then maybe eventually he'll get a head coaching gig somewhere else. But for us, no thanks. Directly coaching the likes of Melvin Gordon and Nick Chubb, respectively, after a short stint. So he's good with running backs. And look, hey, maybe if he wanted to leave the Rams and come over as a running backs coach for us, cool. And maybe even like assistant and running game specialist or whatever, running game coordinator. There you go. Cool. Like, that, and you work your way up, bro. You work your way up. Anyway. After a short stint as running backs coach at the University of South Carolina in 2019, Brown eventually joined the Rams in 2020 as their running backs coach. In 2021, Brown took over an additional role of assistant head coach and has worked alongside Sean McVay. Okay, I don't know why Sean McVay seemed weird and wrong to me for some reason. Anyway, so okay, he's gotten some like interim or intern. He's kind of, because that's kind of what that is, right? When they give you the assistant head coach, you're kind of interning in that position because you're basically just following the head coach around and learning from him. So, okay, that's good. He has that, but I'd still like to see him again rise up, maybe become or offensive coordinator at some point. And maybe another year or two of having assistant head coaching responsibilities so that way he can learn that and then eventually get there. While well respected within the Rams organization, Brown has never called plays at the NFL level. His last play calling gig came in 2015 when he served as the offensive coordinator for the University of Miami. And he's 35, has no history with the Dolphins either as a player or a coach. So again, I would pass. I think he just needs to, he just needs more experience in the NFL and needs to work up a little bit more. All right, so this is the last bit that I want to talk about because this is specifically about Harbaugh, and obviously this is the guy that I would prefer above the rest. But anyway, Harbaugh interview has not been requested by any team with a head coaching vacancy. So, University of Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh reportedly hasn't officially interviewed for any of the NFL head coaching vacancies, despite rumors about a potential return to the pro level. And I do think that is something, like right now, Stephen Ross, I believe, is playing a little game of behind the scenes where he's publicly saying that he would never take, Jim Harbaugh away from Michigan, and I think that publicly he wants that to be true. I don't think he wants to give Michigan the impression that he's trying to steal their head coach away, right? Because he loves Michigan so much. It's his alma mater. He's given them tons of money, etc., etc. So I do believe that to be true. But again, if Harbaugh was to decide, hey, I want to go back to the NFL and I'm going to leave Michigan, I guarantee that Stephen Ross is going to be on the phone and be like, hey, Jim, you want to come to Miami? Now, maybe he says no and wants to go somewhere else anyway. That is also possible. But I do think that, Stephen Ross certainly would not be upset if Jim Harbaugh just happened to choose Miami as his destination in the NFL after having independently decided he wanted to leave Michigan. So, anyway. But let's go through this because apparently he has not had any interviews, and I do think this is something that we would hear about. So let's go through this. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk reported Friday no Harbaugh interviews were confirmed to the league office as required by rule, which suggests he could be using NFL interest as leverage in contract talks with or the discussions happened off the books, which obviously has also been, talk out there. Maybe he's just trying to get more money. And Stephen Ross, has even said that he's, trying to keep him at Michigan and et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, the Harbaugh buzz started before the NFL coaching carousel even started spinning, and it kicked into overdrive after the Miami Dolphins surprisingly fired Brian Flores on Monday. Owner Stephen Ross, a major Michigan donor, quickly shot down speculation Flores' departure was a way to clear the way for Wolverines head coach, though. I'm not going to be the person that takes Jim Harbaugh from the University of Michigan. I hope he stays there. He's a great coach, Ross told reporters, and that was his public statement, obviously. Instead, the pair have been talking behind the scenes about ways to keep him in charge of the UM program, with the coach actively talking to the powers that be about a new contract per Florio. That hasn't materialized so far, however, which leaves open the possibility he could return. So maybe he is trying to leverage for a new contract. Maybe they don't give it to him, and maybe he's like, fine, I'm gonna leave. So there's a lot of ways that this can play out still. We have to see, but we'll know over the next few months. So Harbaugh compiled a 44-19-1 record across 4 years with the San Francisco 49ers from 2011 through 14. The Niners made the playoffs in 3 of those seasons, highlighted by a trip to Super Bowl, 47? I think that's 47, if I'm not mistaken, where they lost to Jim's brother, John, in the Baltimore Ravens. CBS Sports' Jason La Canfora reported the Las Vegas Raiders were a team to watch if Harbaugh decided on a second NFL stint, as he's very well liked by team owner Mark Davis. Obviously, the Raiders have been another team that has been, put into the mix for him as well. The Raiders qualified for the playoffs under the guidance of interim head coach Rich Bisaccia, but have yet to make any coaching decisions for next season as they prepare for Saturday's playoff game against the Bengals. All told, the fact Harbaugh hasn't formally interviewed for an NFL job, despite 8 vacancies, suggests the rumors are merely a leverage play to secure a new deal for Michigan after leading the Wolverines to a college football playoffs this season. If a new contract doesn't get done in the near future, then perhaps this look toward the pro game will become more intense, as I just said. So again, we will have to wait and see how this whole thing plays out, but that is really all I got for you on the updates. Obviously some interesting stuff there. We are going to, continue to dive in to these different candidates and so on and so forth. I'll keep giving you updates as they come because we're going to have them. So, I'll keep you guys abreast of the things that are happening as they develop. And obviously, I'm going to be super curious to see too, because depending on who they end up choosing and hiring will determine in large part my confidence or lack thereof for the upcoming year and the upcoming regime. And frankly, the upcoming years, because now that we're going to be hiring a new head coach, you should expect that he's going to be here for 3 to 3.5 years. Now, it is true that Stephen Ross, the first 2 coaches Stephen Ross had here, he fired after 3.5 years, at the midway point. The last 2 coaches have only gotten 3 years, and it is true that the guy is getting older and more desperate. So you never know. He could speed up the timetable. However, I think it's probably reasonable that this next coach will get 3 to 3.5 years. I'm pretty sure he'll still stay somewhere in that range, unless he starts getting really, really extra crazy desperate and is like, you need to have results in a single year for me to trust. I hope it doesn't get that wild, because then we got all kinds of other problems. But anyway, so that's that. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I am going to get ready to make that other video, the 2021 season in review video. So make sure you check that out as well. For now, though, I'm going to get out of here. Before I do, make sure you check out the Rave On Sports App, the new fan-driven sports app for all of your sports, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, college, whatever you like, they got it, and they're looking to enhance your game day experience with live play-by-play coverage, live chats with other fans and content creators like myself, as well as providing you with an arena to dispute all of the terrible officiating across the leagues. So make sure you look for the links to that in the description box. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at DillonTartaro, as well as on Instagram at Dolphins_with_Dillon. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.
7 seconds left. done it. They keep their season alive. 69 yards. Wow. Pure joy. Miami wins it.